So today is Friday, but today is also World Suicide Prevention Day. So joining us now is Daryl Brown. Daryl is a survivor of a suicide attempt, and we thought it'd be important to speak to somebody who's been through this, because there's a lot of South Africans walking around depressed, feeling like it's the end of the road, feeling like there is no answers. And I think the best way to sort of get an answer is for somebody who's had the experience, somebody who's gone through this. So joining us now via Zoom is Daryl. You are in Cape Town. Daryl, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much for inviting me, Tando.
Daryl, I almost called you Tando. We're really excited to have you here, simply because I was extremely touched by your story and how you managed to turn it around. It's not always the case for a lot of people, but we're hoping that in sharing this, we're able to maybe try and make a difference. So please do share your story with Joburg.
So the first time I thought about committing suicide, I was 12 years old, and I struggled with depression. I've lived with depression for most of my life. I never spoke to anyone about it because I looked around and I thought everyone has issues, but everyone else is dealing with their stuff. Why can't I? There must be something wrong with me. I just need to suck it up and kind of pull myself together and get on with it. And I kept on thinking, okay, maybe if I change this about my life, things will get better. And so I kept hoping for things to work out and for myself to feel better one day. And eventually I went to visit a friend of mine in London when I was 25. And as soon as I got off the plane, I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like I belong somewhere for the first time. I felt like I was at home for the first time. So I moved there to study, thinking that, that would cure everything, because then I could be myself. I came out as gay, and I'd been bullied at school, which was, I think, a big source of me not being able to accept myself, as well as struggling to kind of reconcile my sexuality with my faith, because I grew up in quite a religious environment. And so I moved to London, but because I'd been living with depression for more than a decade, it had changed the way my brain worked. It had changed the way, it just changed me on the inside.
Did you know it was depression at the time? I mean, 12 years old is when you say you felt you were depressed. But did you know what word to put to the emotion?
You know what? I didn't really understand depression. I thought depression is just something that bored housewives make up so that they can talk to someone about their make-believe problems. And I didn't really understand the depth of the mental illness and how serious it was. And I thought that I was just weak for not being able to get on with life. And so, when I was in London, obviously I carried that with me there. And I had my first romantic relationship, which failed. I wasn't doing as well as I'd hoped at university. And I really wanted to carry on and stay in London, but I couldn't get sponsored for a work visa. So it looked like I was going to have to come back to Cape Town with my tail between my legs. And I thought, I'm going to have to move back in with my parents and be a leech of them forever. And I just felt like a failure in every aspect of my life. And I was so tired of waiting for this one day when everything might be okay, because I didn't know if that day was ever going to come. And I couldn't do it anymore. I thought, I've tried everything that I could think of to cure this. And it's just not going away. And I just needed some kind of relief. I wanted to go to sleep and never wake up again. So I decided to kill myself. And I waited about a month before I actually did it, because I wanted to tie up all the loose ends. I wanted to say goodbye to the friends I'd made in London. I wanted to finish my course. But from the moment that I made that decision, it felt like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders, because I thought, okay, you know what? I just need to hang in for a few more weeks. It's just a few more days, and then this will all be over, and I can rest. I'll have some peace. I'll have some escape from that voice in my head saying, you're not good enough. You're worthless. You're a failure. And so on the day that I was supposed to leave my flat, I packed up my suitcase and I went down to the nearest tube station, and I waited for the platform to be empty, and then I jumped in front of a train.
Sure. Talk to us about that moment. I mean, I feel like the body the body wants you to do the opposite. You know what I mean? Like if we're in danger, your body naturally wants you to run to safety, for example. And for you to be in such a dark place where you actively seek the danger, where you literally counting down the days, is an extreme dire situation. What is it that goes through your mind in that moment?
You know, so I was sitting on the platform for a while because I wanted it to be empty. I didn't want someone to see what I was doing. And so while I was sitting on the platform, I was just playing Sudoku on my phone. I was just like, I'm just waiting for this to happen. But there was kind of like an icy nervousness down my spine. And I remember my leg was kind of like jumping, just with like nervous and impatient anticipation. And when the platform was finally clear and I heard the next train coming, I just kind of took a deep breath, and I stepped off the train. And you know, I don't know if other people feel this, but you know, so often when I was standing on that platform waiting for a train to go somewhere, it would be like I would be standing on the edge of the platform and it was almost like there was an itch in my feet just to take one step off the platform. I was like, it's so easy. But I lost both my legs in the suicide attempt. The train ripped them off. And so I'm a wheelchair user now. And that was, you know, for about 6 months afterwards, I was so angry with myself for putting myself in that situation and with the universe, because I was like, I couldn't do life before, and now I'm supposed to do it without legs. Like, how am I supposed to do this?
But you did manage to turn your life around. Daryl, we're going to come back. We also have Cassie Chambers, who is Operations Director at SADAG, will also be joining us about how you can turn your life around if you're listening right now with suicidal thoughts. If you just tuned in, we are speaking to Daryl Brown. Daryl, born in Cape Town, bullied at school at the age of 12 for being gay, triggered his depression. He never really got to voice out his emotions, which built up this initial thought of suicide as a teenager. He just shared how he then moved to London and jumped in front of an oncoming underground train in London. He has, however, survived his suicide attempt and is here to tell the tale and to prove that there is life after this and that there is an answer. What is it that you do now, Daryl?
I'm a marketing manager, but after the suicide attempt, I studied psychology as well. So I've got an honors in psychology now, and I'm hoping to go into that field.
Lovely, lovely. Well, somebody in that field, Casey Chambers, Operation Director at SADAG, joins us now as well. A story like Daryl's is very hard to comprehend. I mean, I always give the example of, you know, physical injury is so easy to, because you can see it. But now you're dealing with something that you can't see. And it's almost like a dark feeling where you don't know if there is actually a cure or if you'll ever be fixed or be fine.
Absolutely. And I think this is the conflict that we have, is that because we can't see it, we can't see that someone's hurt, we often can't think that it's a real thing. And I think even people who feel like it, you know, we sometimes can't pinpoint what that feeling is like. It's with you from the time that you wake up till the time that you go to bed, and it's there with you all the time. And I think this is why we're having more conversations around these hard, heavy topics, right? Makes it more normal, more okay to talk about, so that we can have these conversations at home, in the car, around the dinner table, so that we can start labeling or giving a word to how we're feeling, what other people are going through. You know, an interesting thing about Daryl's story as well is that throughout his journey, he didn't have people talking to him about these issues. The first time that he heard about depression or spoke to a psychologist was in the hospital after his attempt. Sure. And I think that's what having these conversations, Tando, is we normalize talking about these things that we're too scared to talk about.
And of course, now we, you know, with COVID around, I think the last time we spoke about how the numbers have sort of spiked. What's the case? What are we looking like as a nation right now?
Absolutely. And looking at 18 months now into COVID. So before lockdown, we were having 600 calls. And I think this is what we spoke about last time as well, is we had 600 calls to our call center on a daily basis. From the first day of lockdown, we had over 1,200 calls. And now, nearly 18 months later, we're looking at well over 2,200 calls every single day. And that excludes SMSs, emails, social media. There's so many people that are struggling and not coping and feel like they can't talk to someone. So while I'm encouraged that people are reaching out, and just from January, we've been receiving over 75,000 calls to the suicide helpline. So people are reaching out, which is great. And that's very encouraging. What I'm worried about is the people who haven't called us yet or don't know about us or don't know how they're feeling.
Daryl, if somebody is listening right now and has suicidal thoughts, what would you say to them?
I would say you're not alone. No matter how isolated you feel, there are people who care about you. If you don't feel that you can talk to someone in your life, I know sometimes it's awkward and you don't want people to change the way they think about you, call a helpline like SADAG or Lifeline. If those people really understand what you're going through and they're trained to help you and to support you. I wish that I'd known about these kind of services before my suicide attempt.
I mean, how lovely is it that we live in a time where we can share these stories and people can know that they're not alone? Just to wrap it up, Cassie, if people want to get a hold of SADAG, how can they do so?
I think the first step is go to our website at sadag.org, where we've got tons of information, our WhatsApp number, our SMS, our helpline. We do have a 24-hour suicide crisis helpline, 0800 567 567.
Daryl Brown, thank you so much for your bravery in sharing your stories. Casey Chambers, Operations Director at SADAG, is always a good time.
947 Drive with Tandor.
Monday to Friday, 3 to 7 p.m.